Brittany Sconyers. On today's show, we have Orooj-e-Zafar. She is a poet moonlighting as a medical doctor in her hometown, Pakistan. She is the author of 2 poetry collections, Heart the Side of Losing a Fist and Home and Other Debris. 2-time TED speaker, best known for talks on rape and on mental illness, a comedian who conducts storytelling workshops at lower primary, middle, and high schools. She is passionate and has a passion for literature and societal development. Let's welcome Orooj.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy we're finally able to do our interview.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So let's jump right into it. Before we talk about your affinity for poetry, can you tell us about your second job as a medical doctor in your hometown? What made you choose such a demanding career?
So I love that you said it's my second job because I often forget. I forget so often that like that is a part of me, even though it was such a harrowing experience. We had like 5 years of med school and like 4 years of pre-med and 5 years of pre-med. So like it was a monster of a thing, but it still is kind of like my second job because yeah. But I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. It's always been like in I'm sure you've heard of the stereotype that like Asians just have like 4 job opportunity like job specialties like when they grow, and like it wasn't like that with my parents, but it was a very like it really called to me as a career. And when I was studying pre-med, I was really fascinated by science. I was really fascinated by the human body in general, and then my own experiences with mental health and just how like the body works on a physical level and emotional level. It's really fascinating, and that's what made me stick to it.
That's so interesting. That's amazing. I love what you're doing. From all the information available about you, one can deduce that your job as a medical doctor isn't a significant part of your life. Why is that?
That it isn't or is?
Isn't.
I don't know. I feel like doctors generally, like, it seems like the only mentionable part of their personality is that they're doctors, right? And like I don't like that. I don't like that a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure it's different in the States because like now you need to be more of an all-rounder to get into med school, and like the pressure is so intense. Like you need to have like a language aspect, you need to have a cultural aspect, you need to be doing volunteer work and research work. There's a lot there, and it's getting that way here in the States, and sorry, in Pakistan. And in Pakistan, like it just seems like if you've chosen medicine, you don't choose anything else. That's your life. And I really wanted to break away from that because I'm suffocated by the notion that only one thing defines me. So I try to be a person before, like, like I don't like that one thing defining me. So I try to stay, like, I don't want to be defined by a thing. I want to be defined by like the experiences I have with people and, the moment to moment interactions I have. And being a doctor is a part of me, being a poet is a part of me, being a spouse is a part of it, and a part of me, all of that together. So
Yeah, so here in the United States, you have to go through residency. You have a lot of different steps. I think you also have to do an internship too. There's a lot of hours required to do those things like volunteer work before you can actually become a medical doctor, which I think is great because it's very important. Like we don't want someone to come out of school, right, and start operating on us, right? They need to follow a doctor who has actually been in practice for years, right? So that they can gain the knowledge and understand what they need to do, right? Because that wouldn't be right. I wouldn't want somebody operating or delivering my baby, right, that just got out of school, because I would feel so uncomfortable. But I love how they do have like interns with them when they're delivering. When I delivered my first baby girl, Sky, my doctor, he was the chief of OBGYN. He had an intern with him, and I thought that was very interesting. And he told me that she would be there to help and guide them. And I think it's very interesting because you may figure out that at that point, even though you've been to school for so long, you may not even want to be a doctor. You
Yeah.
know, you may not even want to perform those kinds of things, surgeries and things like that. You might wait until then and figure that out. And you know, it's crazy, but you never know. But hopefully they don't turn back on it after spending so much time in school and things like that. But I think it's very important that you um, do an internship with a doctor before you become a medical doctor yourself.
Yeah, that's currently what I'm doing. I
Okay.
graduated in 2019, and then I took
Uh-huh.
a year off because you don't get a break in this career. You don't.
Oh,
So I decided to take a break earlier, and then I started in February. So it's pretty hectic. I mean, it's like 80-hour weeks, but I'm enjoying it a lot.
well, that's good. Yay. So let's talk about your life as a writer. But first of all, why do you love literature so much? What factor profoundly connects you to this art?
I think it's I want to say Peter Pan syndrome, but that doesn't apply to me anymore. I I really connected with stories as a kid because I wanted to escape all the time. Like I was always daydreaming, and if I wasn't daydreaming, I was reading, or if I was reading absentmindedly, I'd be like thinking of stories of my own. So like I was really really attached to books as a kid, and we didn't have a lot when I was growing up. So books were like my only thing. Like, it was music. Music
Mhm.
came much later. And like writing also came much later, but reading was like my thing. Like I could not, before like it became really cool to like books, like it was before
Right.
where there was no internet. I mean, there was internet, but we didn't have that at home. So what would happen was that we would have like annual book fairs at school, and most, if not all of the time, I couldn't afford a book over there. So I would stay, like it would be a whole day event, so like from 8 to 3 p.m. And I would stay at the book fair, finish a bunch of books, and then go home because like we had from home. So I think I'm the reason a lot of bookstores now have that rule that, if you're going to read it, just buy it. Like, I think
Uh-huh.
thing now, but I've just always been attracted to it, and I think it's because they're so powerful. Stories are so powerful, and the person telling the stories has a huge responsibility, And I
Yes.
think even in history, I feel like history is still like with fiction, you can get away with a lot, but in this day and age, you can't. You have to be
Right.
mindful, like the communities that you're representing, or the story you're telling, or if history isn't like a one man perspective, it's a bunch of different perspectives because one person didn't experience it, right? Or all the
Hmm.
way a story is told is really important. And again, I'm fascinated by human beings. So I really liked literature.
Your affinity for combining words artistically led you to write your first book, Home and Other Debris, at a very young age. Please tell us a bit about this book and what inspired you.
So, Home and Other Debris was an unintentional thing I happened upon. My friend, Rachel, she was the first editor I got to work with. We used to work at this magazine called Who Deludling. It took me a while to say that right. But we together in the poetry department, and we were on this website together as well, DeviantArt, and like that's how we knew each other. And she went on to curate this anthology called America Is Not the World. This is 2016, before Trump was elected. So it was her way of like showing that like the policies that were being presented, or that were being, were at the forefront of that campaign. It was very America centric, that America needs to like get its economy back, and like we need, proud Americans working on fixing America and all of that. And her way of like shedding light on the fact, she was trying to shed light on the fact that we're not the entire world, we're a part of the world. So it's important to hear from different people from different countries and different cultures, and even people within America with different cultures. So I was part of that, and it was the first time, quite embarrassingly, that I had written about home in any capacity. And those poems were just, I couldn't stop writing them once I started. Like it was addictive. subjective, because I guess when you're avoiding something, like you're still building it in your head, like you're like
Yeah.
if you have to think about something, it's still space that your mind is occupying. And that was definitely the case for me. And like these poems just kept coming out, and they just kept coming, and then there was like a whole book of them, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And yeah, it was just enough material. And like I might as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. At such a young age, you were a published author, public speaker, and award winner. What would you say is the driving factor of your success?
I'm gonna give you the most anticlimactic answer. Boredom. Like, oh my god, I used to get bored really easily. And I don't mean boredom like, oh yeah, I'm so great, I can just do that, and like, I can do that with my eyes closed. It wasn't like that. It was just this, I was so obsessed with not being defined by like being defined as a medical student, that whatever free time I had, I would just pour it into any art I could find. I mean, writing is not all I do. It's just the only like professional thing I've done. Like I rely on art for sanity, very frankly. Like I don't think I could do anything if art wasn't in my life. I'm an avid consumer of like local art. Like it's definitely like, I mean, of course, therapy, medication, yes, it worked wonders, but art had a huge hand in that as well. So I think it was just like this obsessive need to not be defined by my career, like my career trajectory. And in a way that was really unhealthy for me, because I was
Mm,
working so hard to not be defined by something, that it gave way to other problems and a lot of other triggers. And I'm glad I'm not like that anymore.
that's great. That's great. You spend some of your time conducting storytelling workshops at a lower primary, middle, and high schools. Please tell us more about this activity and why you chose to do it.
So I think, yeah, we just talked about this, that like stories are really important in the sense that the person telling the stories has a huge responsibility. And
Right.
I think when you're an adult, it might be too late to learn, but I still don't think that's true. I think you can learn this at any point, because you have the ability to listen at any age. And children are so, like, they're so innocent and pure. And no matter how like annoying they get, like how on your nerves, it's because they're so pure. And like we're
Yes.
at some level we admire and envy that. And
Mhm.
kid to understand the responsibility that you have as a storyteller, I feel like that's that's where a lot of us went wrong beforehand, because we didn't understand the responsibility that our words have. Like the reason that we
Mhm.
hurt other people, without thinking, or like it's very easy to hurt people if you
Yes.
don't understand the responsibility your words have. So to make kids understand that, I decided to do storytelling, and to do storytelling workshops, and helping them, or at least encouraging them to go to books or any kind of medium that they're comfortable consuming. Like even shows, I didn't shy away from that. I said that if there's a cool video game you really like, what about this video game do you like? A lot of the kids said there was the story, and that's what got to me. That my nephew, he's 5, no, 8. He's 8. Sorry, he's 8. He's really into like action video games, and I told him that he should play Assassin's Creed, and specifically Assassin's Creed, like the second one with Ezio. And it was strictly because of the story. He hasn't stopped playing the game. He hasn't stopped because he's so enamored by the story. There's a big bulky guy, and he goes around
Mhm.
saving people. He's a rogue agent of the law, but not the law. Like it's very important to find like comfort in stories, but also understand that any story you tell has a huge impact on anyone who
Mhm.
listens, or anyone who has access to it. So I think you need to start with kids. You need to make them feel like they have a say or
Yes.
a hand in making this world, or else they're never gonna feel like they owe the earth anything or owe themselves anything, really.
Yes.
So
Yes, I agree. I like that. I like what you're doing with kids. I love kids. And, I focus a lot on my children on like helping them with building a foundation of what they want to do. Like Sky's already has a book out already, and then we did an animated film, short film for it. We're now working on book number 2 and 3, and so I think it's very important that we definitely build that foundation for them so they can be successful and feel like they matter, and what they want to do, they have support from other people too. I think it's very important that they're in extracurricular activities, whether they want to dance, whether they want to be a track star, whatever they want to do. I think that we should allow them to do that at an early age. So when they get older, they kind of can figure out, okay, do I want to do this? Do I not? It's very good to start at a kid age. I think that is very important. You made a great point right there.
and it's also about agency. The kid has
Yes.
agency. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
What advice do you have for people who wish to become as famous and successful as you in the world of literature?
To become more famous and successful. That's the advice. Become more famous, get more money out of this. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay.
It doesn't.
Like I just think that you can't get into this thinking that you have something unique to say. Like I know that that sounds really, really demoralizing, but it's important. It's important to accept that you're not saying anything unique, but you are saying something important. Like
Okay.
unique because it's coming from you, but there's comfort in the fact that it's not unique. A lot of us go through the same feelings. I was constantly trying to be defined by this, by my uniqueness, like I wanted so much to not be like other people, whatever that meant. Like if I didn't want to be like other medical students, I didn't want to be like other girls, I didn't want to be like other spouses, I didn't want to be like other daughters, and like that led to a huge breakdown. It was so much pressure on myself. And when my book came out, what relieved that pressure was that, oh my God, other people go through this too. Other people felt the same pressures I did. And the thing that relieved all of my pain of like wanting to be this perfect, the one of a kind person, the thing that helped me was community. So like there is no ego in learning. There is no ego in creating art. You need to let that go. Not like
Yes.
day one. You just have to know what you have to say is important if you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about yourself. And if you're talking about other people, if your stories involve other people, it is phenomenally incomplete if you don't talk to people from that community.
Oh, yeah.
Unimportant, actually, if you don't consult them. So that's what I have to say. And don't expect money. Don't expect money from this. I do
Right.
it for free. Sorry. I do a lot of the stuff for free. I don't I left paying jobs to do what I want to do for free because I wanted to do it. So don't go
Mhm.
into this fame. Have fame before, then do it. I think it's much better that way.
Yeah. But my thing is, anything that you do, you need to be passionate about it first. You can't think about the money, you can't think about that because you need to be passionate about what you're doing to make sure that you're doing, giving your best at what you're doing. So I do agree, money will come if it, supposed to, but, just do something you're passionate about, because it'll make you feel so much better every day. And you're so passionate about literature. I can tell by what you're saying that you're super passionate about it.
Yeah, and the thing is you can get more money. It's
Mm-hmm.
harder to get more happiness. So it's really important
Right.
that you
Oh, yes.
enjoy what you do. 80-hour weeks of
Right.
you need to like it. You cannot do it if you don't like it.
That's right. That's right. Besides being a fantastic writer, you're also famous for your TED Talks on rape and mental illness. Can you go over the main talking points of the speech for the sake of the audience? What are your thoughts on rape and mental illness?
Okay, so I'll like explain what the TED Talk is briefly, and then
Okay,
I'll
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So I like that this came full circle. I'm just sort of like mental tingling at that. So basically, I don't know if a lot of people felt this, but in the crowd on that day, I remember when I was telling the story, and I was telling the story of a man. And I was talking about how like this man had overcome so much adversity and, helped me through a lot. And then it turns out that the story is glorifying almost this perpetrator, this abuser, and the story was about me the whole time. And there was a lot of responsibility on me for that story because I wasn't the only victim. I couldn't possibly have been the only survivor of that. But like the entirety of it was trying to show people that you can empathize completely and wholeheartedly with someone who has hurt someone so violently. But you have to separate yourself from that attachment to empathize with someone who's been hurt. So that's what my intention was with the TED talk. But as for my thoughts on sexual violence or mental illness, what do I say? Don't do it. Don't freaking violate people, man. Like it's not that hard. I don't understand why the topic of consent is so controversial and so polarizing. It's not that hard to have a conversation
Mhm.
about. It's yes and no. How can you confuse the two? Like it's not like we're working with a lot of gray here. And I think it's important to always be ready to double check. Like if you are feeling unsure that someone means yes or someone means no, you can ask again. And people who want to be mindful or be careful with people or show that they're empathetic would know how to double check without pressurizing the other person. And
Mhm.
I'm not just talking about like something as intimate as physical relationships. It's simple with friendships as well, like just asking your friends like, hey, I really need to vent, do you have the emotional capacity to listen to me right now? Like even that sort of consent is what normalizes consent in general. Like
Mhm.
I don't know what to say about it.
No, I agree with you on that. I have a lot of people who come to me personally to vent, to talk about their lives and things that they've gone through. And that's what inspired me to start this show, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you're going through your own storm, right? And somebody's coming to you with their storm, okay? And you have to sympathize even though you're hurting. But if
Yeah.
they were to ask what you just said, do you have the emotional capacity to listen to what I'm going through right now? Because you never know what someone else is going through, right? But yet you're coming to them for advice. And I'm an open book. And I'm one of those ones. I'm not going to tell you something that's going to make you feel good. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. There's a
Yeah.
difference. If you want me to be real with you, and I ask, do you want me to be real with you or do you want me to make you feel better? Which one do you want?
Yeah.
And they say, I want you to be real with me. And I said, listen, if I be real with you, I don't want you to dislike me.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Know that I'm here to support you. I'm very strict with that because growing up, I went through depression and all those things, right? And I never wanted to vent to other people because I was so concerned about everybody else's feelings. Oh my gosh, if I tell this person, it's going to mess up their day. And so I felt like I wanted to keep all of this inside of me, right? And
The
that's what I
non.
did. Right. And I harbored those feelings inside. And it eventually hurt me to the point where I got to depression. I wanted to kill myself multiple times. And I wanted to give up on life because I didn't understand why I'm here. I didn't understand what is the purpose of me being here, having to go through all of this pain. But yes, I got through that. Right. So I definitely understand being a support system for people. And I'm so happy and blessed that I'm able to be supportive of other people who are going through things because I actually went through a lot at a young age. So now that I'm about to be 35 years old, I'm like a book of knowledge. I can tell you what you need to hear to help you get out of the situation, or I can tell you what makes you feel better. And I prefer to tell you the realness because that's going to help you progress. But
Yeah.
somebody sometimes just needs to feel better for that moment, and I don't want them to hurt themselves. So I'll just try to give them something general. If you want me to get deep into it and help guide you out of this, I will. But I've lost friends from being like that. Like I lost friends from being so real and blunt. And I didn't understand that. I was like, why would you come to me for advice to help guide you out of this when you can't accept it?
Yeah.
You know, if a guy is not for you, I'm going to tell you that. And that's it. I would want my friends to tell me the same thing, even though we have to go through these things in order to make us better, right? So you may have to continue to stay in that relationship to go through a lot more pain just for you to see it for yourself. But I just don't like when people come to me and ask me for advice and then they stop talking to me because they can't handle what I'm saying, but I'm only trying to tell them the truth. And then it's crazy because afterwards they'll send me like messages, oh my gosh, I know I haven't spoken to you in forever. I'm so sorry. You gave me such great advice. I should have paid attention to what you said. And I'm like, yeah, you could have knocked off years of pain had you just listened to me. But, you know, I'm not a mental health therapist. I've really just educated people from what I've been through. And I went through a lot at an early age. And not only that, like growing up, I saw my stepfather block my mom's eye, steal from us. You know, I went through a lot of traumatizing things that I would say to myself, I'm not going through this. You know what I mean? Sometimes you tend to go through the things that your parents go through, right? But I knew, I was like, no. If a man put his hands on me, that's it. That's it. I'm walking away. It happened. A man put his hands on me, a guy I was dating, and that was the last time he heard from me and talked to me. When I say I'm very strict with who I am, I know what I'm worth, and that's all I'm going to take. You put your hands on me, I don't believe in that, that's it. There's no reconciliation with that because whatever tempted you to hit me that time would tempt you to hit me again. Okay. And I'm speaking for myself. I know there's other people who, you know, go back to the relationship and I'm sorry, like that's just not me for my life. And I know it's hard sometimes when you've spent 15, 20 years with someone. And I get it. I wasn't with the guy for that long. I was with him for probably a little over a year. So I get that my relationship was fresh, but still, I just had that. I had that set for my life while I see my mom go through it. So I knew if I ever went through that, that was it. I remember being out to eat with one of my boyfriends. We were in another state. We had traveled to St. Louis and we were at Waffle House. And the waitress, I was telling the waitress that I wanted my eggs fried hard, hold the yolk. And she was telling me, oh, the chef can't do that. I'm like, if you go tell him that, he'll know exactly what I'm saying, right? And she was just fighting with me about it. And so I just kind of made this like this, right? And my boyfriend kicked me so hard under the table. Oh my God. I almost lost it. And I'm very light complected, so you could see the bruise immediately on my leg. So I'm like, I have to ride the rest of the way home with this guy that just did this to me. And I'm so against it. And it was just the whole ride home, I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't say anything. I was like, I can't wait till I get home so I can get in my car and get away from you. But I think a lot of times our emotions just get drawn into relationships and we just don't want to leave because we feel like we're so in love and we're loving for the wrong reason, or we're holding a void. Like say, for instance, for girls who don't grow up with a father figure, right? Versus one who does. Like the one that doesn't seem to go through a lot more tragic events with relationships versus the one who had that foundation, right? That's why I think foundations from the beginning are very important for your mental health. Having conversations with your kids is very important as parents. And I think in our generation, our parents didn't talk to us. Yeah. You know, I talk about it all the time. My mom would write me letters. We lived in the same household. My mom would write me letters because because she didn't know how to express her feelings.
Yeah.
And it wasn't her fault. It was her upbringing. And so that curse come over to our relationship. But I knew that I needed to break that curse for my kids. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, Sky, what's going on with you? Tell me now. You know, I'm constantly drilling that inside of her because I want her to always feel like she can come to me and talk to me about anything. I don't care if you tripped over a rock. You can come and talk to me about anything. I want to open that up for you because I know how it is to harbor your feelings inside, to write them on a piece of paper and leave it on a table for your mom to read, for her to write you back. That's unhealthy, you know? And that kind of went along with in my relationships. Like, that's why I don't know how to really communicate sometimes because of how I was raised. You know what I mean? And I know she wasn't doing it on purpose as I'm older, but you know, we gotta break these curses. We have to talk more. Mental illness is real. And that's why I'm gonna be starting Mental Illness Mondays with therapists. Because I want this conversation to continue to go on because what I've seen in the past year with the pandemic and people having to be in the home with people they may not have wanted to be in the home with and not be able to do the same things that they do on a normal daily basis and make it and normalize it. I think the problem is that we don't normalize mental illness and going to see a therapist and things like that. And that's why the world is so broken. It was so broken.
Praise that. I love that you said break the curse because trauma is a curse. And I like in my therapy sessions when it was really heavy, I would call it a weight. Like, you know, like you know how we say emotional baggage. Like
Yes.
I tried a way to say it. So I would be like, you know, this weight. And you know, so the weight had different compartments. There was shame, there was denial, but it was mostly shame, you know, like shame that this happened to me and I let it happen to me. And, you know, as a kid, if, and that's what still gets to me sometimes, that like if it now or even back then when I was processing all of this, if a kid came up to me and told me the exact same thing that happened to me happened to them, even at my worst would I think that this kid is at fault. Not at my worst. You know? Even a teenager, well, not even a teen, they're kids. Even an adult, if an adult came up to me and told me that this happened to them, number one, I would believe them instantly because that is the best you can do. That is the least and the best you can do for someone is just believe them because that like that thought you introduce that, oh, I believe them, it colors all of your actions after, you know. And and you know, like I would never place the shame or the blame on them. Like the person who should be ashamed is the person who inflicted that on you, who thought that it was in any way an okay thing to do. And it's so hard to break from trauma, like especially when, you know, stuff like that happened to both of us as kids. Like these things that they shape you, and like you said, it's a foundation, and it's important to get the foundation right. And it's really hard to build the foundation from the fifth floor, you know, like it gets harder and harder, but people do it, you know. I'm doing it. I'm not going to say I did it because it's a process, and you're still doing it. We work on this every day. It's a scar that doesn't heal, you know, like it's a keloid, you know, like this one. So like it's there, you can see it's a scar, but it's healed. It's not bleeding actively. It doesn't even hurt that much, but it's there. And it's a victory because you're overcoming it every day. You choose to overcome it every day.
Yes.
And like you're not, you know, when people say, oh, I'm just like that, or oh no, like you need to get to know that person. They're just, you know, they're set in their
Yes.
ways. I don't believe anyone is set in their ways.
Yes.
I think that if they decide that they can do this, they can. And I don't mean that, oh, they can overcome addiction or they can overcome their personality disorders or mood disorders. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that if they decide that this is something I want to work on and they have people who believe in them, who check on them and, you know, make sure that they're doing the steps necessary and they have the help they need, whether it's medication or therapy, any kind of therapy, because there's so many different kinds. they can do it. Like
Yes.
that's what we forget. That's what we forget, that human beings were not meant to thrive alone. Like it gets lonelier on the top, and that's not the way we were supposed to function. That's not the way we were supposed to progress. We were supposed to progress as a community. The reasons that when men were hunters and gatherers, and the women
Mm,
of the settlement would come together, they would share stories. They would say that, oh, my partner got those berries, they were poisonous, so he died. So like, don't get those berries or whatever. Like, we shared stories, and you can't have stories that are important if you don't have communities,
that's
and
right.
communities without stories. People forget that. What is that saying? It takes a village to raise a kid. Like, it takes a village.
Yes.
Takes a
Mhm.
village for everything. It takes a village
Yes.
for everything, and we just need to bring that back. Like, we need to
We
make it
do.
cool again to like
Yes,
have.
we do. Yes. I like what you said when you have mentioned people are set in their ways. People are saying, I dislike that saying so much.
My
You
goodness.
cannot be set in your ways. You need to get out of those ways because they may be stopping you from progressing in life, from
Yeah.
reaching that goal, from doing what you're passionate about. I do not like that. Accept people for who they are because they're set in their ways. Well, I'm not going to accept someone being negative to me because they're set in their ways. No, I'm not
Yeah.
going to accept that. You know what I mean? Because I don't need that in my life. You get what I'm saying? So I don't like that saying, and hopefully we can get rid of that one day.
Uh, Also, like, being set in your ways has nothing to do with boundaries, like personal boundaries. Personal
Right.
boundaries are different. If
Mm-hmm.
your boundaries start impeding on someone else's, it's bad. You're doing something
Yes.
wrong. Like, that's
Yes.
freedom of speech, but that's another thing. That's another
Yeah.
entire. But
Another topic. Yeah.
thank
At a
you so
young
much
age,
for what you did.
you're
Like,
welcome.
I think it's very brave and very powerful.
Yes. Yes. At a young age, you achieve more than most adults can dream of. This leads me to wonder, what other goals do you wish to accomplish in the future?
Um, this is gonna sound very, again, anticlimactic. I kind of want to be efficient, and I'm not very good at it, but I really like doing that. But to be more on brand, I really want to um like, my dream in life is that I introduce not therapist, therapeutic techniques in doctors. Like, so not just like, how therapists are licensed because they've learned certain kinds of therapies, like behavioral therapy or CBT, DBT. There are many different kinds, and there's like art therapy, and therapy in itself is huge, right? But
Mhm.
specifically CBT and DBT, I really want doctors to. I want it to be mandated that they have um, that qualification, that certification to continue a practice, especially like clinicians and physicians, because I
Mhm.
know it's like, really, it seems superfluous, but dude, the doctors that I've met in my life, they're not the most empathetic, and unless you raise the bar much higher, that you can't be good enough by just studying biology your whole life. You need to have an interest in arts and physical education and all of that. Until that happens, I think it's really important that behavioral therapy is a part of the curriculum.
Mhm.
And it's just important because, like, people are so vulnerable when they come to you as patients, and
Mhm.
you need to be mindful of that every step of the way. Not in a way
Mhm.
that hurts you or like it debilitates you from doing your job, in a way that it's healthy.
Mhm.
Like, sometimes when I'm looking at a patient, like they're just about to have their surgery and they're knocked out, I keep thinking, "Oh, I hope to God I'm never in this situation where, like, someone that I'm asleep or I'm like under anesthesia, and like people are holding my body." And luckily, like, the people I've met who are like part of the moving process, and putting a first patient under or any of that stuff, they're really, really good. But I feel like doctors shouldn't be exempt from that.
Mhm.
Like, it's only much wiser, much more experienced doctors who have that sort of wisdom or that sort of insight. And I'm ashamed to have graduated with the doctors that I've graduated with, a lot of them. And I don't have graduated if I was in charge. Not because of something personal, but because like they just don't meet the criteria for me. For
Oh,
doctors.
wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, I love all that you're doing, and I want you to continue to do that and live your passion. Thank you so much for being on my show and sharing your story and all that you're doing. And I look forward to continue following your journey and us to keep in touch.
I really hope. And best of luck
Yes.
to the show and every other thing that you have planned, which is really cool.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for tuning into The Release Show. See you next time.